knows where you are.
I do it the old-fashioned way.
Kip started calling back in 1960, I think it was, for a teen group in New England. Assume he was the premier caller in New England, traveling anywhere. He is internationally known. He is nationally known. He is internationally renowned and nationally renowned. Recorded on at least 6 different labels that I know of, and one of those was his own, which was Eureka Records, which still has, if you can get any of the records, a lot of really, really good music on it. Kip served a number of years on various Color Lab committees on the Board of Governors, was also the vice chair of Color Lab. Along with Bill Davis, he worked on the majority of what is now known as, well, worked on pioneering what is now known as the basics and the basis of the technical theory behind most of what we call choreographic structure in sight calling techniques today. I'm not sure, I said this last time, he still hasn't given me a definitive answer, but if you look at the numbers of Color Lab coaches, his certificate says either 001 or 002. I think it was you and Bill Davis are 1 and 2, but I'm not sure which one's which. Kip runs an online caller school, as well as being a feature at a number of national and international schools. He's written a number of magazine articles, technical documents, a excellent technical book on choreography called Nuts and Bolts. And for newer callers, he's also got another book out, which is very appropriately titled for newer callers, called Call Me Crazy. So I'm not going to go into Kip's history because we'll be here all day and I want to let him talk. But joining us from Pioneer, California, please welcome Kip Garvey to talk about applying technical zeros, transitions, and conversions. Thanks, Kip. All yours.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. All my Tripsicorian friends, everybody interested in our dance form, our music, and especially our choreography. And what we're going to do today is we're going to pick up a little bit where we left off. I'm going to use some terms that we've already presented previously. So what I'd like to do is to jump right away into terminations, if I can find my copy of it here. Let me know that you're seeing terminations up on the screen. And if you are, then we're ready to go. Are we seeing terminations there? Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to move immediately from the static square to a corner box. I say that immediately, and then I can't seem to type here. Let's see. And that's our corner box. And I think that that's a pretty well-known starting place for all callers of all levels. Everybody should be familiar with the corner box. And if you're not, you better get yourself some Tylenol for the rest of the session. That's the corner box, and it's also, you'll notice that everybody in the corner box is facing their corner. Every dancer is facing their corner. And so we say the common dancers are facing. In every case, the common dancers are corners, and they're all facing each other. There are 4 similar types of setups in boxes that we use. If all dancers were facing partner, that would be a partner group. If all dancers were facing right-hand lady, all men were facing right-hand ladies, all ladies were facing left-hand men, that would be a right-hand lady group. If all dancers were facing opposites, the common dancers were opposites, then that would be an opposite group. Excuse me. So when we talk about groups, we're talking about analyzing a collection of 4 dancers. And in the square, if we have a box situation like this, we have 2 side-by-side collections of 4 dancers. We can also split the square right down the middle, and we would end up with a top, which is called the far collection, or we would have a collection of 4 dancers along the bottom, which we call the near collection. So when I refer to a near collection, I'm talking about the people in the bottom part of our configuration. If I talk about a far collection, I'm talking about these 4 dancers, farthest away from the caller. The caller is standing down here. That's the assumption. Now, if there's a left collection, which is the one we normally focus on when we have corner boxes, then that would be the left collection, and opposite it would be the right collection. Now, the collections can only exist 2 at a time. In other words, if we have a left collection or a right collection, In other words, if we're looking at the left collection, the only other collection is the right collection. If we're looking at the near collection, the only other collection would be the far collection. So every caller is looking at some collection of 4 dancers. Our focal dancer is our key dancer, who is bookended on one side by his corner, on the other side by his partner. And then we have a secondary key dancer who's always the partner to the corner. So in that particular case, our number 1 man is our focal man. And when we start moving dancers around the square, we always want to have our primary focus on the focal man. Wherever that focal man is, we'll determine what collection he's in, and we go from there. So we have several terms now that have been reviewed. We talk about dancer collections. We talk about common dancers. Common dancers mean that all of the same types of relationships are facing or paired with each other. And we talk about groups. The group will take the name of the common dancers. So here the common dancers in a corner box are corners. And when we talk about pairings, we're going to actually overload that definition just a little bit. A lot of times, pairings have always dealt with the adjacent dancers. Anytime callers speak of pairings, we always speak of adjacent dancers. But when we talk about groups, pairings can be dancers who are facing each other as well as dancers who are beside each other. So just so we have our terminology correct, if I say that I'm looking at the facing pairing or I'm looking at the adjacent pairing, the word pairing in references to groups can be either facing dancers or adjacent dancers. Now, we get into any kind of a setup, and we're going to start right here with the corner box. The questions, the general questions, what we call the questions from the 10,000 foot level is, how can we move these dancers? And we all know that one way to move them is to call zeros. We can call zeros and move these dancers so they all remain in the same collection. So every collection will have dancers who are members of that collection. And as long as the dancers remain in the same membership, the membership of the collection remains the same, then nothing has changed. Group-wise, nothing has changed. Everything remains the same, and it's very easy to call zeros. All we have to do is put the dancers back in the same starting place that they're in now. So just to give you an example, I would call, for instance, swing through. I'll have the boys run, and I'll call wheel and deal, and there is a zero. That should be a very familiar zero. Matter of fact, that should be one that every caller has got totally memorized from facing normally arranged facing couples. Swing through, centers run, wheel and deal is a zero. So there's a zero. That's one way we can move the dancers. We don't have to have them in the same geographic location in order for the same dancers to be in the same collection. So if I say step to a wave, gotta learn how to type. And then I say circulate, and I say circulate again. So there's 2 circulates. I have moved the same collection. All the members of the corner box, my original corner box, are now over here in this location. So that the collections don't have to be in the same location. We just have to be aware of the fact that the membership is all the same. I'm going to move them back again. With a single call. And this is a call that callers like to use because it's a great big zero. All of the members are back with each other, even though geographically they're located back now in their original quadrant of the square. So this is one way we can move dancers. Another way we can move dancers is to call a get out. If you call a get out, of course, you're moving dancers back eventually to their home position. So we have modules that are zeros, we have modules that are get outs. Now there's another way that we can move dancers, actually 2 more ways, and only 2 more ways, and that's by changing the membership of the collections. And that's what we're here to discuss today. We're going to actually change the memberships of the collections. And in doing so, we're going to look at two different types of dancer movers. One's called a conversion and the other's called a transition. So let me quickly, that's kind of funny, quickly for me, jump over to the presentation for today. And we'll be talking about these two specific people movers, conversions and transitions. And we're going to learn some modules. I'll give you some modules that I really think are your starting points for each of these. And that's why I had you grab a pad. So you can begin. Slide set will also be available to you. Mark will make it available on the Orange County College Association website. And it's also a downloadable file set. So you can have this in your own system for studying later on if you want. Now, in the process of some shameless self-promotion, yeah, I'm not old. Don't think I'm old. I've just been younger, a lot longer than you. That's all. And the two books that I've written, Call Me Crazy, Nuts and Bolts, have really done well. And if you're interested in getting them, you can get them at my website, which you can reach at kipgarvey.com. And the Central Sierra College School, quite a few people who are online right now are members of that school. And that's also available with lots and lots of resources. Now, when we call, we always want to call with a goal in mind. I think that this might be unfair for me to say this, but there are a lot of callers that I've worked with that I've seen just get up and start calling. And they profess to be site callers and they could probably do a pretty good job at it. But they really are not calling with a goal. I mean, they're just moving dancers from one point to another without completely understanding where the dancers are at a given moment in time and where the calls that the caller is calling are taking the dancers. Now, when you go to a caller's school, and I've done plenty of these, we do flashcard sessions where we hold up different formations. And newer callers get a chance to learn about how dancers move from one formation to another. Well, that's okay for the formation element of phaser. And later on, we'll hold up flashcards that ask them to actually don't just go to right-hand ocean waves, go to right-hand ocean waves with men in the center, girls on the ends, or two men on one end and two girls on the other. So we can actually move dancers from a known ocean wave to one that has a different arrangement. But again, that only handles the formation and arrangement aspects or elements of phaser. We need to know where we're actually taking those dancers in terms of relationships. And this too often gets overlooked. I think it's a big black hole in the learning that callers have gone through for the past 2 or 3 decades. And that's my fault. That's the fault of a lot of caller coaches because we haven't really done a serious study on relationships. Well, that's been my pursuit for the last 3 or 4 years, to develop a study on relationships, something that we can transfer in hand to newer callers so they can learn about the relationship aspect of phaser. And the tie-in for moving dancers is always to have a get out from wherever you put them. So with that in mind, we're going to construct now how conversions and transitions, which are people movers, will move dancers from a known place to a place we know they're going to end up. And we're going to have get outs from those specific locations so that we have the whole package, and including not just the formations, not just the arrangements, but the relationships as we move dancers along. Now, there are two dynamics that change groups and dancer relationships. And the two dynamics are conversion and transition. So transition is a special one because there is one type of transition that is different from all other types of transitions. So, and I'll get to that. We've already had a special session on that with Mel earlier, but I'll point to it when we get to it. Now, the first is conversion. What is conversion? You remember when we had terminations up and we had the corner box up and we talked about membership within that collection of 4 dancers. In that collection of 4 dancers, if we were to change the membership, there's only 2 ways we can change the membership of that collection. There's only 2. The first one is to have symmetrically diagonally opposite dancers change places. One leaves one collection and goes over to the other. So one member will exit the corner box and go over to the other collection. And in order for the calling and all of the choreography to be symmetric, that there has to be a reciprocation from the other collection. That dancer's diagonal opposite must also move from the other collection into the collection that we're focused on. Let me show you what I mean by that. Wish there was a quicker way to do this. I'm sure there is. But here we have our squared up set, and I'll move the dancers to the corner box. And I'm going to, again, remind us that the collection that we're first going to eyeball is the one that has a focal dancer in it. So we're going to look at the members of this collection, and we see that there are 4 members of this collection. And we're going to say that one of these dancers is going to exit out of this collection and go to the other one. And that can't happen unless we have a reciprocation on the other side of the square. I'm going to take this number 3 lady and I'm going to move her over to this other collection. But the only way I can do that is if she exchanges places with her diagonal opposite. That's the only way. So let me focus on her right now and see if I can get this to happen. Whoops, that's not the way. Okay. I forget how I did this. Girl 3? Nope. Nope. Well, forget it. Here we go.
The word centers.
Yeah. So now I've accomplished it. I was trying to just have them do U-turn back and cross, but you can see that only one dancer has exited this collection and a new dancer has arrived in this collection, because this is where I'm focused. I just want to focus on these 4. I really don't care about these 4. That's why their color is the way they are, by the way. But can you see now that even though only this one girl has been swapped from one collection to another, the whole nature and characteristic of this collection has changed. The common dancers now in this collection are original partners, not original corners. It's true that number 1 is facing his corner still, but number 4 is no longer facing his corner. So corner is not the common dancer. The common dancer is original partner. So that one significant change of one single dancer moving from one collection to the other has changed this group from a corner group to a partner group. Is everybody following me on that? And this can happen. I don't care which of these dancers makes the move. I could have taken the number 4 dancer and swapped with the number 2. I could have taken the number 4 man, swapped with the number 2. Number one man, swap with the number three. As long as only one dancer has exited this collection and gone to the other one, this group is going to change. And it's the only thing that causes the group to change is that one dancer leaving the collection. Let me get back to my slide set. I think I lost you guys. Help, I'm going under.
You seem to be doing all right.
Like a rotten cucumber. Slide set, where are you? Right here. So if one member exits a collection and goes to the other one, a conversion has occurred. Here is a picture group-wise of how conversions work. And you notice that next to the word conversions, it's either up or down or across this way. So we can have a partner group. Well, what we did was we did a corner group. We took the inside ladies, exited their collection and went to the other one, and that created a partner group. We could have also created from the corner group an opposite group. Okay, so conversions will always go across to the other type or the other family of groups. If we start with a partner group and we do a one dancer change, then we're going to end up in either a right-hand lady or a corner group. If we start in a right-hand lady group and we do a single dancer change, it'll either end up in an opposite group or a partner group. And that's the nature of a conversion. A conversion will always change our groups by family. A transition is the only other action that can occur, and that's when two dancers exit one collection and go over to the other one. Now you might say, well, what about three? Well, no, that's the same as one. So there really is only two. And you can't say all four because then nothing has changed. But one dancer can leave or two dancers can leave. So there's only two. And when two dancers exit a collection and go over to the other side, it's called a transition. And here you'll see in this graphic that transitions go crosswise within the same family of groups. So when two dancers leave one collection and go to the other one, a corner group becomes a right-hand lady group, or vice versa. A partner group becomes an opposite lady group, or vice versa. So just to make sure, in case some of you might have understood that graphic, here it is all combined. All right. And for those of you that like to read these technical kind of charts, this is the perfect chart that explains conversions versus transitions. If you don't like this chart, blow it away. One dancer exits their collection and goes to, and I've got this thing up here. How do I get rid of this, Mark? I got it. I'm trying to get rid of the people. All right. So one dancer exits their collection and goes to the other. That's a conversion. The group, in group speak, the groups will convert to one of the two groups in the other family. So a corner or right-hand lady group becomes a partner group or an opposite group. Or a partner and opposite group becomes a corner or right-hand lady group. Now, calls that will create conversions are the ones that you see listed here. Excuse me. An end circulate. However, ends must be facing the same rotational direction around the square. In other words, you wouldn't be in facing lines that say end circulate and call that a conversion. That's really not a conversion. That happens to be a transition. But as the ends are all facing the same rotational direction, such as parallel two-phase lines or parallel ocean waves, or certain types of 3-in-1 lines where the ends are facing the same rotational direction, that single circulate of having the ends circulate or the centers circulate, either one, but not both, will result in a conversion. A column circulate will be a conversion. Any of your chain through calls, spin chain through, will end up being a conversion. Any call where two dancers in the center of the square exchange places in the center of the square will result in a conversion. As far as transition goes, we said two dancers have to exit their collection and arrive at the opposite collection. And there is always an observable four ladies chain effect in a transition. Group transitions mean that the groups will change within the same family. So a corner group can transition to a right-hand lady group or vice versa. Partner groups can transition to the opposite lady group and vice versa. But a partner group will never become a corner group as a result of a transition. You cannot cross families. Calls that result in a transition, trade by, would end up in a transition. Certainly you can see that with the center two dancers, as soon as they execute the pass through part of the trade by, they're moving from one collection to the other. So two dancers are moving reciprocally. There's a total of four dancers moving, obviously, but in terms of groups, where you're looking at one particular group, one group, the group on the left, for instance, is losing two dancers and picking up two new dancers. So this is a transition, and trade by will always result in a transition. Waves and two-phase lines, circulates, will always end up in a transition. And you can see that because the circulates in waves or two-phase lines have two dancers crossing over to the other side of the square. In other words, they're moving from one collection to the other. A center's trade will always end up in a transition. We're going to talk more about that because I'm sure it's a head scratcher for some. But we'll see that center's trade actually is a transition. Ends or centers pass through. So I mentioned that if we had facing lines and for some reason we wanted to call ends circulate, perfectly legal, they would ends would pass through. That is not a conversion, that is a transition. Okay, so whenever the ends or the centers pass through, we end up with a transition. If the outfacers in ocean waves were to trade places, we would end up in a transition. Now, that's kind of a similar situation with centers trade. So we're going to get back to those two in a while, and we'll see exactly what we mean when we say that they end up in a transition.
Can I have a question in here?
Sure.
Here's Mickey. What about spin chain the gears? We move two dancers. Would that be a transition?
Well, you know, I'm going to come back. I'm writing that down right now. Spin chain the gears. And I want to come back to that when I get back to termination so we can see exactly what's going on, okay?
Okay.
I think that would be very helpful to everybody if they can see the graphic when we do that. All right. Spin chain the gears is a transition, but it's a special transition.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Kip, I got a question. If you have your, let's say you got your 8 chain through position,
Yeah.
you have them go to a wave, to
Step
two
to a
waves, and then you have the centers trade. Well, the left group is still the same, and the right group is still the same, but the top group or the front group and the back group are different now.
That's correct. We're going to get to that, John.
Is that what makes it the transition versus a?
Well, like I said, we're going to get to that. Congratulations to you for seeing that, because that's a critical aspect of groups, and we're going to talk about that before the hour's done. All right. What's happening is you have, when you call a centers trade, you have 4 dancers on one side, the membership remains the same. But if you take a look at the other collections, the near and the far, you find out that a transition has occurred in those collections. And that's a special kind of an animal called, that we're going to get to. But right now, it's a little premature. So let me make a note of that, John.
Call that a transversion?
No, it's not a transversion, John.
or a position?
Good idea. It's called group overlap is what it's called. And we'll get to it. But I'm giving you a gold star, John. You're getting an A+ so far. If the 2 dancers who exit their collection are common dancers, the transition occurs, but the groups do not change. The groups remain the same. So this is interesting. Common dancers can move anywhere together, and eventually they're going to meet up with either the same common dancers they were in their original collection, or they'll move up, they'll end up playing or working with the other set of common dancers from the other collection. This might sound gibberish at this point, but I'm going to demonstrate this for you. It is a very, very simple concept, very simple. Regardless, when common dancers meet other common dancers, the groups remain the same. They have to be, because the definition of a group is the group will take the same name as the common dancers. So if common dancers are moving along together, the common dancers are not changing, so the groups can't change. They have to remain the same. The groups will remain the same as they were prior to the movement of the common dancers. And the original phaser can be reconstructed. Now that's a lot of language, a lot of verbiage that basically is leading us to technical zeros. So the term inversion is something that I've been playing with now for the last couple of years. And I've been playing with it because we have a module out there called invert and rotate, which is a technical zero. But I haven't had anybody satisfactorily explain to me what the word invert means and what the word rotate means in the invert and rotate module. And so I had to dig in myself and figure out, and I think that if we call the movement of common dancers together the inversion aspect of a technical zero, so it's a special kind of a transition that we call an inversion. Now things are beginning to tie together, and we'll see when we get to that in a minute. Two common dancers can meet up with the other set of common dancers who were in their original collection with them. Once this happens, the original phaser can be reconstructed. All right, now what does this mean? Well, it's really simple. The collection has 4 dancers in it. 2 of those dancers are common dancers. One pairing in every collection is going to be common dancers. And so if we move those common dancers along and they meet the same people again, the same 4, certainly we can do a zero. I mean, relay the Ducey is a zero. It's a perfect example of how this works. We have common dancers who are moving through a relay the Ducey action, and they all meet up again on the other side. And so the same dancers are meeting each other. That's what this whole phrase means. 2 common dancers can meet up with the other set of common dancers who were in their original collection with them. And once we do this, if we reestablish the original phaser, we've done just nothing more than a zero. It's just a zero. However, if the common dancers in one collection, the one that we're watching, meet up with the common dancers who were not in the original collection, we can still reconstruct the original phaser, and the result is a zero. But this time, we don't have all 4 members together. The membership now consists of the 2 common dancers, let's say, that we were viewing, that we were focusing on, and 2 brand new common dancers who arrived that used to be in the other collection. But by manipulating them back into the same phaser, it ends up being a zero. And this is what invert and rotate does. The 4 ladies chain effect is always present in any transition, including a transition that later results in a technical zero. The 4 ladies chain effect is observed by comparing the mixed or the not common pairing in the initial phaser with the mixed pairing in the technical zero phaser. Time to take a look at what that means. It means basically that we have to start looking at the roles and positions of heads and sides because they are swapped or inverted. And that's why this special kind of transition is called an inversion. So we'll go back here. Let me share again my contaminations. And we're back to our corner box. And from here, we're going to say slide through. Why? Well, because that's what pairs the common dancers. The common dancers in a corner box are corners. And now we see that all common dancers are paired in the entire square, that one single call has paired them. My focal man has his corner, and we're going to concentrate on him right now and his adjacent partner, his corner. And we're going to say he's facing, or he's in the same collection with the number 4 man, and that, oh, I wasn't in a corner box. John, you didn't catch that. There's my corner box. And there's my
I have to let the instructor make his own mistakes.
I appreciate that, John. Here's my corner line now. All right. So now everybody's paired with corners. And I'm going to focus on these 2 dancers, because when common dancers are together, I only need to focus on 2. The object of the game is to keep them together. That's all. As long as they stay together, I don't care how many calls I call. If I can keep them paired, all the other common dancers are paired as well. As long as I don't do any exchanges of dancers in the middle. In other words, as long as I don't do a conversion. As long as I don't do a conversion and I keep my common dancers together, then I can do a transition, or I can actually move them back to the same group. So there's a couple of ways I can do a 0 here. But in order for it to be a 0, I need to appreciate the get out. So somebody give me a get out from here. All right, what's the most common get out from here? Somebody jump in and volunteer.
Square through 3 to an Alaman left.
I like that. Square through 3 to an Alaman left. That is the baseline get out from the corner line where all dancers are in sequence. All right. So square through 3 is going to be my get out. Can you see? Now watch as I move my common dancers. If I do a pass through, I do a bend the line. I do another pass through. I do another bend the line. Can you see that I really haven't done anything at all, that the same collection of dancers is together? This is the same collection that used to be over on this side of the square. Now they're over here. So can I call my get out from there? And the answer is yes, I can, because I just really called a 0. All right, my collection is still the same. Now, I don't have to just do the bend the line thing. I can really do anything I want as long as I keep those dancers together. Here's a pass through. Here's a wheel and deal. Have the centers pass through. Swing through. Boys run. Bend the line. And there they are. I mean, they're back again. And all I'm doing is I'm focusing on these 2 dancers. As long as I keep these 2 dancers together, they're either going to be facing these 2 common dancers or these 2 common dancers. There's no other alternative. They're either going to be facing these 2 or they're going to be facing these 2. If they're facing these 2, which are the 2 that were in the original collection, and I set up the exact same phaser, particularly checking sequence, then my get out's going to work. The square through 3 Alaman left is going to work. But what's interesting is I can do this kind of a transition. And now my focal couple is facing the dancers who were in the line with them before. But still, all dancers, all common dancers are still paired. So as long as my sequence state is okay, I should be able to apply the same get out. The sequence state is not the same. I'm viewing here my number 1 man, and number 4 man is to his right. Dancers are out of sequence now. To put them in sequence, I'll just call a right and left through. Now I should be able to call my square through 3 hands and get to the corner. And the reason I can do that is because this whole setup of the square is technically equivalent to this. And this is the original collection that I started with. This is the collection where my focal couple is now working with the other pair of common dancers from the other collection. These two setups are identical, except for one thing. Both the position and the role of the heads and the side dancers. In this particular case, the roles of the head dancers is they're facing original partners. The roles of the side dancers is they're facing their original opposite dancers. The positions of the side dancers is their ends, and the position of the head dancers is their centers. So if I just change the formation to this, the only thing that has changed is the roles. Now it's sides who are facing original partners, not heads. Now it's heads who are the ends of the lines, not sides. So both the roles and the positions of heads and sides has changed or swapped or have inverted. And so therefore, the whole concept of invert and rotate is that it's a one specific module that is a technical zero because it brings dancers to the technically equivalent setup. Now let's go back to our corner box. Here's the corner box. Now it's located in a different location, but it's still the corner box. And my original collection of 4 dancers is the same. Okay, the membership is still the same. Now I'm going to call the invert and rotate module, which we know now is a technical zero, and you'll see why it works. The slide through, which is the first part of the invert and rotate module, pairs common dancers. The pass through doesn't really do anything except change the sequence state. The pairings are still the same. Everybody, all common dancers are paired. Bend the line is what the actual technical zero call is, because it allows these common dancers who were originally playing with these ones to now start playing with the other common dancers from the other side. And the final slide through in the invert and rotate call, all it does is reestablishes the original phaser, but it is the technically equivalent phaser because the roles of the heads who were in the center are now on the outside. I'm sorry, the position of the heads who were in the center are now on the outside, and the roles of the dancers were that the heads were with their beside their original opposites, and now the sides are beside their original opposites. So both roles and positions of the dancers has changed. Now that's a lot of, I don't know, technical analysis, but if you want to boil that down to the core, you know, how do I use this thing? You use this thing by keeping common dancers together. That's what you do. Now I'm pairing the common dancers. Now I'm going to do a pass through. I'm going to do a tag the line. I'll have them face right, I think. How do I do this? There it is. All right. Notice that I've got these, some of the dances are half sashayed. Some of the dances are normally arranged. It makes no difference. I'm just watching these two. All right. I'll say couples circulate. Tag the line. Face in. Now they're normal. Anybody recognize where they are? How about now? Right back in the corner box. Okay. So that's the trick. The trick is keep the common dancers together. And whether or not the common dancers are playing with these two dancers in their existing collection or these two, you will be able to reestablish your corner box. It's as simple as that. Now, what makes it really interesting is this happens anytime common dancers are facing. So let me just do a reset. And let's have the heads lead right. And see if that works. Terrible flow, I wouldn't call that. But I just wanted to get common dancers facing. Now, common dancers are facing, but they happen to be original partners. No problem. What's the get out from here? Let me help you. Pass through, Alaman left. Okay. So I'm going to call the invert and rotate module because it works anytime common dancers are facing. So slide through, pass through, bend the line, slide through. Okay. And now I have common dancers facing one more time. This happens to be the technically equivalent setup for the one I started in. I can still call my get out, pass through, Alaman left. It'll still work. So that's the way technical zeros are constructed. And so what's the easiest way to think about technical zeros? Really simple. Keep common dancers together. Set them up so that they're playing with the other common dancers from the other collection and reestablish the phaser. You've done a technical zero. That's all there is to it. Now that technical zero is independent of of sequence. I'm going to change dancer sequence right now. All dancers are now out of sequence. My get out's going to change naturally. My get out now is square through three hands, Alaman left. That's the get out. Let's do the invert and rotate. Slide through, pass through, bend the line, slide through, and there it is. All right, I still have common dancers are facing, still partners. The heads now, the head man and his adjacent lady are in the center of the setup instead of being on the outside. But square through three to an Alaman left will still work. So there you go. Now let's get back to, hate to rush you guys, I really do, but I've got a lot to say. If we get back to our relationship chart, this is an important chart. This is the reason why this all works. In the mixed paired states, we have two expressions that describe the mixed paired state. First expression says one couple paired with partner, the other paired with opposite lady, or one couple paired, one couple unpaired. That is something that almost every caller will recognize when the dancers are in that state. However, that state can exist in two different ways. We can have the head boys with original partner, side boys with original opposite lady, or we can have the head boys with original opposite lady and the side boys with original partners. So this is where the inversion comes in between these two elements of the mixed pairing state. And the same thing is true with the last two. I'm just throwing that in by way of review. Now, phasers that we're going to work with in our exercise, ignore that stuff up in the corner. I don't know how that got there, but we're going to start with phasers that are 8-chain through boxes where common dancers are facing. And in this situation, we have these 8 possible phasers that we can deal with. The first one is a phaser where all dancers are facing corner. All dancers are facing corner. So corner is common dancers. Common dancers are all corners. And that can exist in one of two ways. We can have that exist like this, which is an in sequence state, or we can have it exist like this, which is an out of sequence state. Either way, it makes no difference, except in the way that we name it. If it's in sequence, we call it a CB, or a corner box. Whoops. If it's out of sequence, we call it a CBO, which is a corner box out of sequence. All dances are still facing corners, but the sequence state is out. It's out for both girls and boys. We can have all dances facing partners in sequence, all dances facing partners out of sequence. We can have all dances facing right-hand lady in sequence, which is what we call an RB, or a right-hand lady box. Or we can have all dances facing right-hand lady out of sequence, which is an RBO. Okay? Opposite lady facing box, all dances are facing opposite ladies in sequence, call it an OB. Or opposite lady facing, and the sequence state for all dances is out, OBO. So we're going to deal with these these 8 setups. These lower 4 differ from the upper 4 in sequence only. Conversion modules. So applying a conversion module to a corner or right-hand lady facing box results in either a partner or an opposite lady facing box and vice versa. So this is where we came in when we talked about conversions swapping from one group family to the other group family. So corner right-hand lady group family results in partner or opposite lady family. We swap between the families when we do a conversion. And as a reminder, ends circulate or centers circulate when ends and centers are facing the same rotational direction is an easy conversion. And it's one that you should play with your checkers as you begin to learn what conversions are and what they do. The same thing with column circulate. Very easy to see the conversion in a column circulate. And from these reference boxes, we can do a single circle to a wave, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, wheel and deal. It results in a conversion from any one of those 8 setups. The transition modules that we're going to look at apply to corner facing box resulting in a right-hand lady box or vice versa, or a partner facing box resulting in an opposite lady facing box or vice versa. Your chicken plucker routines. These are transitions, very simple. We're moving 2 dancers from one side to the other and back again maybe. The chicken plucker routines can be used as transitions as long as common dances are not paired moving through the center of the square or remaining together on the other side, the outside of the square. As long as common dances are not moving together in any fashion, then a transition will occur. Transition will also occur if common dances are together, but the groups won't change because you're doing a 0, a technical 0. Pass through, trade by, couple circulate, all 8 circulate. These are examples of transition calls. From these reference boxes, the 8 that we talked about, touch a quarter, girls trade, touch a quarter results in ocean waves, girls trade, followed by a flutter wheel, slide through, results in a transition. The technical 0 module is when a transition occurs, basically moving common dances. And I've spent a lot of time talking about that already. The 4 ladies chain is effect is still there, but it has to be viewed or observed by looking at the mixed pairings. Furthermore, all of this stuff will work when dances are normally arranged or in a half arrangement. Any of this stuff only works in 2 arrangements out of the 6. So arrangements 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're not going to work. Here is a collection of calls called little call modules in each category. So each one of these, each line is a call module that you should use in the exercises that we're going to do. These are all transitions from boxes where common dances are facing. That's the starting point in every case. We can use any one of these lines, any one of these modules to perform a transition. Conversions, these are the modules that you're going to use. You're going to use one of these modules to execute a conversion. And the inversion, which is the technical 0, will be using any one of these three modules. Any one of these three modules will result in a technical zero from our starting 8 phasers, which are 8 chain through boxes, in or out of sequence, all common dances facing. We need some get outs. So here's a little chart of get outs that we can refer to. When we finally move dances where we want to move them, we've got to get them out. And here's what we mean. If we move dances to a partner line, which is all dances in sequence paired with original partners in lines, slide through, square through, 3 hands will get them out to a corner, Alaman left. If that partner line is out of sequence, then the get out is star through, pass through. All right, so this is square dance calling 101 here. This is actually where I began learning this stuff. And I think all callers do. You start with a partner line, here's your get out. Take that partner line, do a right and left through, put them all out of sequence. Now you're going to use something else for the get out. This is my touchpad. I don't have a mouse. I'm using a touchpad. It's jumping around on me. So when we get to the partner line out of sequence, start through, pass through is the get out. If we have a partner box, so you can form a partner box from a partner line by doing everybody half sachet and face your partner. That's going to end up in a partner box. So the get out is going to be passed through, element left. If that partner box is out of sequence, however, then the get out is going to be square through 3/4. So from a partner line, we can go to a PBO just by calling the call slide through. From partner line to a PBO, you call slide through, then follow that up with a square through 3/4. That gets you out. Corner line. If you're in a corner line, square through 3/4. Somebody volunteered that earlier, and that's a great get out. These are great starting point get outs. All right. Nothing fancy about them at all, but this is baseline stuff. If you're in a corner line, square through 3 hands will get you to an element left. If that corner line, you do a right and left through first, so it's a corner line out of sequence, a slide through will get you to the corner. So here, I'm not going to go through all of these right now, but here is a collection of all the get outs that we'll use from every possible phaser that we'll be in using the setups that we're going to use. So we're going to do a setup, and this is an exercise that I'm hoping that you'll take to heart, because if you do this exercise faithfully, once a day, every day, this stuff is going to all of a sudden dawn on you, and it's going to be very, very simple for you. And it's an exercise that we can all do. You can do it by moving checkers. You can do it. You can do it using a pencil and a pad, Susie, a pad and a pencil. You can do it using terminations or any of the other checker movers that you want. The first step is identifying the starter phaser, and we're going to use one of these 8 reference phasers to start with. We're going to use a partner box out, corner box out, opposite lady box, opposite lady out, right hand lady box, or right hand lady box out. Okay, those are the same graphics that I showed you in the previous. Those are the same 8 setups that I showed you in the previous screen. The second thing we're going to do in this exercise is write a module that'll move dancers from home to your selected starting phasers. So in other words, we're going to move dancers from home to a partner box, or we're going to move them from home to an opposite lady box, or we'll move them from home to a right-hand lady box out of sequence. That's the second step. Decide where you're going to move the dancers initially, from home to one of these starting phasers. The third step is going to be decide and write down your objective. In other words, once you arrive at one of these 8 setups, where are you going to move them next? If you transition, like for instance, if you're in a corner box and you transition, will the transition result in an RBO? Or let's put it another way. Suppose I just want to call a transition module that will result in a right-hand lady box out of sequence. Or do I want to call a technical 0 module that'll move me from a corner box to the corner box prime? So I've primed this to indicate that the resulting corner box is a technically equivalent setup to the original corner box. And this is where you're going to look for the roles and the positions of heads and sides to be swapped or changed. Okay, so if you go from a corner box to a CV primed, you want to double check that you swap the roles and the positions of heads and sides. If you're going to call a conversion module, then you want to convert corner box to, it has to either be a partner related box or an opposite lady box, because it can't be right hand lady. That wouldn't be a conversion. If you went from a corner box to a right hand anything, it would be a transition, not a conversion. A conversion has to end up in a box that's in the other family. So the corner box has got to end up in either a partner or an opposite lady situation. So you decide and you write down where you're going to take them, then you put the module in there that'll do that. The fourth step is to write the module and keep it short. So you create a little 2, 3, 4 call module that'll move dancers from your starting box to whatever box your target was, using whatever technique you wanted to use, the conversion or the transition. And you keep the module short. Okay, here's an example of what the exercise looks like. So you take a piece of loose leaf paper and you fold it in half lengthwise. And on one side, you put down, these are going to be the 4 steps. The 4 steps, how to get there from home. So we're going to start in a corner box. How do we get there and home? In other words, from home, I need to get to my starting phaser, which is going to be corner box. How do I get there from home? The answer is head square through 4 hands. There's a million answers. Pick whatever one you want. Once I get to the corner box, I want to convert that to a PBO. That's a partner box out of sequence. What module will do that? And if you go back a few slides, I think I should be able to do that. Oh, well. If you go back a few slides, you'll see where I gave you all these modules that you can be done. So you pick the conversion module that you want. Swing through, end circulate, centers run, wheel and deal. That gives you a partner box, but we need a PBO. So right and left through moves it to a PBO. Okay, so there's a great idea. To convert from a corner box to a PBO, we use this call module. And then what get out will we apply? Now go to the get out frame that I put up for you. And you can see that from a PBO, the get out is square through 3 to an Allen and left. So that completes exercise 1. Exercise 2, we're going to start from home and we want to go to an OBO. That's an opposite lady box out of sequence. How do we get there? Well, here's one way. You can do a 4 ladies chain that gives everybody opposite ladies. Good way to start. Heads lead right, veer left, couples trade, centers trade, wheel and deal. That'll give us the OBO that we need. That results in an opposite lady box out of sequence. Okay, what's the next step? Transition to a partner box. Well, what transition call is the easiest one to use, especially if you're going to 2 different groups within the same family. We're going from an opposite lady group to a partner lady group. So heck, trade by, you need to get a trade by somehow. So right and left through will set up the sequence question, because you're starting out of sequence and you have to end up in sequence. So right and left through answers the sequence question. Pass through and trade by is the actual transition, and the result is a partner box. The get out that we're going to use, single circle to a right and left grand. Here's another example now. We're going to start another exercise. I want to take the dancers to a right-hand lady box. How do I get there from home? The answer is, one answer, head square through 2, right and left through. That ends up in a right-hand lady box. Now let's do an inversion. which is a technical 0, to the RB prime. Okay, well, what the heck? Let's just use invert and rotate. Star through, pass through, bend the line, slide through. And that will leave us in the technically equivalent right-hand lady box. Now let's transition from that to a corner box out of sequence. We want to do pass through and trade by. That gets us to the corner box, but we need CBO, has to be out of sequence. So we have to add right and left through. And that will get us there. And then finally, let's do a conversion from that corner box out of sequence to a partner box. All right, we're going to do a slide through, touch a quarter, column circulate, boys run. That gets us to the PBO. Right and left through changes the sequence to a PB. And the get out is going to be, again, single circle, right and left grand. So this is the type of a way, this is a way for you to develop your own skills in writing your choreography and your modules and understanding how these relationships come together and how dances are moving from one group to another. Remember, there's only two ways, really, transitions and conversions. And so this is the way that you would build your exercise program to develop your skills in handling conversions and transitions. So,
Okay, Kip, I'm just going to interrupt you here for a second. We're just past the top of the hour now. For those of you that have only booked in the hour, by all means, don't feel that you are obligated to stay, but please do stay if you wish to. Kip's got a lot more material to go through, and he's going to stick around to actually answer a bunch of questions as well. But these sessions will be posted on the Orange County College website, and they will be available for download, so you can come back and review this. And as Kip said, he's made the whole series, the modules, the cards, and the charts of all this information available, so you can download and go through it at your leisure. And Mark has also posted the previous session that leads into this one. That's available for download there as well. So please continue, Kip.
okay, I don't really have very far to go. I probably have just another 10 minutes. And I just want to go through these exercises so you can get a good feel for how these exercises are constructed. On the left-hand side, you're the one that decides. Whoops. You're the one that's going to decide where you're going to start, how you're going to get there from home. You're going to write down, I'm going to do an inversion next to an RB prime, for instance. And you're the one that decides this. You write this down, say, what am I going to do to get here? And then you're going to use, here, this is an inversion using circulate. I'm going to get to this example in a minute. But you're writing this down yourself. You're saying, okay, I want to do these conversions. I want to do a transition. And then I want to get out from wherever I end up. But remember how we started our entire discussion. You need to know where the dances are before you call, and you need to have a good idea where you're going to deliver those dances when you make your calls. And this is what you're developing. You're developing these skills here to know where they are when you begin. That's what the setup is. To have an idea of where you're taking them. I'm going to do a transition to a corner box. That's knowing where you're going to take them. And then having an appropriate get out when they arrive. And this is the way to construct these modules. And eventually you will be able to do this on the fly. You won't need paper. You won't need checkers. You won't need computers. You're going to be able to do this in your head, and which is really the goal. That is the goal. So if I want to go to a right-hand box, how do I get there from home? I'm going to do a heads past the ocean, extend, girls trade, and recycle. That gives me the right-hand box. I want to do an inversion, but I don't want to do the invert and rotate. I want to use the circulate call. And as it turns out, if we haven't already discussed it, from parallel ocean waves, if common dancers are facing the same direction and you call an all 8 circulate, it's a 0. It's a technical 0. So therefore, I'm going to set that up. I'm in a right-hand lady box now, which means all dancers are facing their right-hand ladies. So I'm going to say swing through. If I say swing through and I'm facing my right-hand lady, then my right-hand lady and I are both going to end up facing in or out, but we're both going to be facing the same way. So when I call circulate, my common dancers are all traveling together. That's going to be a 0. Boys run, wheel and deal is going to bring me to the RB prime, because this whole combination is a technical 0. This whole combination. Then once I get to RB prime, I'm going to transition back to corner box. Well, what's the simplest one? Pass through, trade by. Pass through, trade by from an RB gives you a CB. So there's your transition. And then the conversion to an opposite lady box. Okay, I got to have a conversion call in there. There's got to be a column circulate or an end circulate or a center circulate. Some kind of a single circulate has to be involved. So I'm going to call right and left through, swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, bend the line and slide through. That's going to give me my opposite lady box. And what's the get out? 8 chain 3 to an Allemande left. All along now, all along, I know where I'm taking the dances and how I'm going to get them there. I know where I'm going to send them and how I'm going to get them there. And finally, the final example, I'm going to start in a corner box. From home, how did I get there? I say, don't be bashful. How do you get to a corner box? Okay, heads touch a quarter, head boy run. Now, I want to transition to an RBO. RBO, okay? Easiest one there is. You use it all the time. Have you got it? Transition, whoops, get my clicker. Transition to an RBO from the corner box. Oh, corner box out of sequence. Corner box out of sequence. So I did a touch a quarter, heads touch a quarter, boy run, right and left through. That right and left through is needed to get to the CBO. Now, how do I transition from a CBO to an RBO? Pass through, trade by. Pass through, trade by does it. And now I want to do an inversion to the RBO prime. Well, try invert and rotate. That'll get you there. Once you're in an RBO prime, makes no difference whether it's an RBO or an RBO prime, makes no difference. You get out for that, it's going to be an RBO get out. So you go to that box, that chart I gave you that has the different get outs, look up the RBO get out, there it is. Okay, the RBO get out's going to be square through 3, trade by. So here's your quiz. Now, we don't have time to go through all these, and we're not going to. What I've done is I've set this entire exercise up for you, and there's going to be 6 quizzes. So you can take this slide set and get to this point yourself. Get to this particular slide and start filling in your answers on a piece of paper. All right? Go to a partner box. How do I get there from home? Write your answer in here. Convert that to a corner box. Write your answer in here. Write your module. Transition to a right-hand lady box. Write your module in there. And then a get out. Write your module in there. And if you did all that, you can go to the next slide, and I've given you a suggested answer. Heads lead right and flutter wheel. Terrible call. Don't call it. I'm not crazy about it, flow-wise, but it'll get you there. The conversion to a corner box. Slide through, touch a quarter, circulate, boys run. To a right-hand lady box, from the corner box to a right-hand lady box, pass through, trade by. And the get out, hey, left square through 3 to a wrong way grand. I know, the devil makes me do it. Apologies. Make it a simple one. Make it a simple one, but that is kind of clever. At any rate, if you complete the rest of the slides, you will be able to have a good feel for this exercise. And this exercise is going to give you a chance to develop the skill of knowing where the dances are and taking them the way you want them to be, and then getting them out. And you know what the beauty of this is? Once you get used to doing this, If you have 5 pilot squares in front of you and they all collapse, you can still get the dancers out because you know where you're taking them and you know what the get out is. And they don't have to stand around forever. You're out of it and you're into your next sequence and everybody's happy, except the dancers who broke down. They're still trying to figure out what happened. But my point is, you don't have to rely on sight squares or anything of that nature because you know in your head where you're going with these calls. Now, John brought up an interesting question on the center's trade. And the same aspect comes up with outfaces trading from parallel ocean waves. Kip, you say center's trade is a transition call. How can it be? Membership remains the same, right? And that was John's basic question. How can it be a transition? Well, it's a transition because we're introducing a concept called group overlap. And that is a great observation, John. I'm glad you brought it up. Our focal boy is in 2 collections at any time. If you look at the focal boy as being in the left or the right collection, he's also in either the near or the far collection. So your focal dancer is always in 2 collections at one time. Here's an example. This is a corner line. Our focal dancer is the number 1 dancer, and he's with his corner. Notice that he's in this left collection where all dancers are with corners. And he's also in this near collection where all dancers are with corners. So all of our collections have the same group name. They're all corner groups. Can we run into a situation where one collection is in one group and the other collection is in another? And the answer to that is yes, we can. And it's called group overlap. It occurs anytime the adjacent pairings are mixed. In lines, when the adjacent pairings are mixed, in lines, then we're going to experience group overlap. So the left and the near collections are in the same pairing state. Common dancers are paired. Okay, common dancers are paired. Now we do a ladies' chain. And what we find out is the membership in this collection has not changed. This collection is still a corner group. The fact that the ladies have swapped places, they're still in the same collection. So they've got to be in the same group. The common dancers are still corners. It just so happens now they're facing each other. However, in the near collection, something dynamic has happened. If I was to try to pair the dancers up, the girl and the boy up who are common, I would pair number 2 with number 1 man, and she is his right-hand lady. And I would pair number 3 with number 2 man. She is his right-hand lady. So this whole collection in the near side is in a right-hand lady group, while this collection is in a corner group. So when we say that center's trade results in a transition, we mean in the other collection. The transition that occurred was from the near collection. The near collection transitioned from a corner group to a right-hand lady group. The left collection remained the same. Now, if we take a look at right face, 2 face lines, and we look at the right collection, well, first of all, let me ask you, why are we looking at the right collection? Because that's where our focal man is. Remember, we always want to develop the structure of the square based on our focal dancer. Now, all dancers are paired with their corners in this right face, 2 face line. The near collection is a corner group, and the right collection is also a corner group. If I do a center's trade, this near collection doesn't change. The membership has not changed. No member has moved out of this collection. But if I view it from the right-hand collection, these 2 girls have moved out of this collection and over to the left-hand collection. So the right-hand collection has experienced a transition. And since it was a corner group to start with, the transition must be a right-hand lady group. Because remember, transitions transition always within the same family. So corners become right-hand ladies and right-hand ladies become corners. So that centers trade has resulted in this bottom collection remaining the same as far as group names go, but the other collection transitioning. So what does this mean to the caller? Well, this kind of gives us the flexibility. If I want to just work with corners, I'll work with these 4 dancers. But if I want to work with right-hand ladies, I can call bend the line, pass through, bend the line, and now I got these guys working together. Or I can call couple circulate. Now I got these 4 dancers working together. So it gives me the opportunity to work with either the right-hand collection, which is a right-hand lady group, or the near collection, which is right now a corner group. And as I move them around, the groups are dynamic. They're going to change. As I move the dancers around, they're going to change. So that's the concept of group overlaps. And the thing to remember about group overlaps is that in generalized lines, when the adjacent pairing is mixed, we're always going to have an overlap. And you might recognize this if you were to articulate the setup of the whole square. We have 1 paired, 1 unpaired. We have 1 paired, 1 unpaired. 1 paired, 1 unpaired. This is the mixed dancer collection, the mixed dancer state of 1 couple paired, the other unpaired. However, when we get to columns, then we have to look at the adjacent pairings as being same. When the adjacent pairings are same and not mixed, then we have group overlap. And that's one reason why when we call pass through, trade by, go back, it becomes a 0. Okay? Because these are corners and corners are traveling together. And if we call a pass through, trade by from here, then it's a technical 0 effect has occurred. All I got to do is to make sure that my resulting sequence is in, just like it is right now for everybody, or boys in, girls out, just like it is right now for everybody. And then I've completed an actual 0, a technical 0. So there you go. So it's group overlap that answers John's question of what happens. And it always occurs in lines when the adjacent pairings are mixed, and in columns when the adjacent pairings are same. So from a corner box, if I do a 2 ladies chain, I end up in this with this adjacent pairing. And that should alert me right away to the fact that I overlapped my groups. All right. This group down here is now a right-hand lady group. This group it's unchanged. It's still a corner group. Okay, let's go back to real quick. Almost done. Hang in there. Don't abandon me. Alone am I. All right, so here is a chain through box setup where all common dancers are facing. All partners are now facing each other. Here we have in the near group all partners, and in the left-hand group we have all partners. Why did I pick left-hand group? Because I'm focusing on my focal man. That's why I call him my focal man, because wherever he is, I'm going to start my construct. God bless.
Thank you. Sorry.
And so these groups are not overlapping. This group, the one in the near collection, is the same as this left collection. Okay, this is all partners. This is all partners. What I need here is I need a same adjacent pairing before these groups will overlap. So get my cursor going there. Now I have same adjacent pairings. And therefore, that tells me right away, I know I've got an overlap situation. I just have to figure out what it is. This left one hasn't changed at all. The membership is still the same. So I still see this as partner. But if I look at that far one, what group is that? If this is partner, this has to be opposite. Okay. Transitions are always within the same family. The family is partner and opposite. Partner and opposite groups are in the same family. So if I have an overlap situation, this collection and this collection are going to be partners. This far collection and the near collection are going to be opposite ladies. And so therefore I know if I do, for instance, a slide through, pass through, bend the line, I knew before I even started typing this, I've decided I want to work with opposite ladies. Flutter wheel. And now I'm going to pair all my dances up with opposite ladies. I'm just going to check the sequence. And whenever I have number 4 man to the left of number 1 man, I know everybody's in sequence. This is an in sequence state. Okay. Suppose, how many of you have all, figured that a circulate always ends up in a 4 ladies chain? And so therefore, if I do a circulate, I should end up in something different. Past the ocean. Whoops. There we go. Past the ocean. Now I know if I call all they circulate from here, everybody's going to get their opposite lady from the one they have now. They now have original opposite lady beside them, so they should end up with partners. But suppose I do the center's trade, which is TRD. And I call an all eight circulate from here. How many of you have experienced this in your calling and you expected to get partners and they just didn't happen? And you're looking at the floor, scratching your head. Why didn't it happen? It didn't happen because you called a technical zero. Remember, these were common dancers when they were on the other side. All common dancers are moving together and staying together. The circulate didn't change the fact that the common dancers are still in the same collection. All common dancers. So therefore, this is still an opposite lady group, even after the circulate. If you want to be sure that you got partners, then you have to have the group lady and the group man, the common dancers, adjacent to each other in ocean waves. Now when you call circulate, it'll be a true transition and you'll get to partners. Just like that. Okay, I'm winded. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Do we still have anybody out there? Mel?
Yeah, we've still got a fair number of people out here. Kip, I want to say thank you very, very much. We do have a number of questions. Sorry, I had to duck off there for a second. I was having a little bit of problems with my mic and everything else, so I've made Mark the host at the moment. We do have a number of questions that came up, but as I was saying, we're now half an hour past the hour. Kip, I want to say thank you very much. Thank you for making your presentations and the exercises available to go through step by step. I'm just going to go quickly through some of these questions. Some of them came up and you answered them as you went through the presentation, which is quite normal. People get ahead of themselves and you finally catch up to your students. The first one was, is it better when you do a head square through to make your corner group? Is it better to focus on the collective grouping rather than to find the key couple corner group type? In other words, you change grouping and you refer to grouping. Is it better to focus on the grouping as that grouping changes and just change it each time?
One of the purposes of today's presentation was to avoid that. Okay. One of the intentions of this presentation was to develop the skills of knowing where you're going to move those dancers before you move them. So we're not watching anything. We're just looking at the dances to verify or validate the moves that we made. I'm not sure I'm answering the question correctly, but as you know, every single setup has a technically equivalent setup. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what you mean when you say the paired couple or the unpaired couple.
I'm thinking this one who's not with us anymore, but I think this is when they were initially taught, they were taught head square through, there's your corner group, focus on the corner group, move the corner group around, and you were changing groups. I think the question was along the line, is it better to focus on the collective grouping as it changes rather than try and keep moving the dancers around to reestablish that corner group everywhere willy-nilly?
Okay, so now I understand what you mean, I believe.
That's how I understood it anyway.
In our training as callers, the very first thing that we need to do is to be able to work 4 dancers together in a collection. And so if you say head square through 4 hands and you know you're in a corner group at this point, or a collection of 4 dancers where the common dancers are corners, you need the skills to be able to work these 4 dancers around as much as possible and keep them together. That's one separate skill set. Then once you're proficient at being able to maneuver that corner box, like for instance, you should be able to immediately change the corner box to a CBO, a corner box out of sequence. You should immediately be able to change it to a corner line. You should be immediately be able to change it to a corner line out of sequence. I mean, those are your only setups that you have in a corner box that are normally arranged. You have the corner box, you have the corner box that's out, you have the corner line, and you have the corner line that's out. So you need to develop the skills to say, okay, I want to move them to a corner line that's out. So the answer is slide through, pass through, partner trade. Okay, now I want to move them from there to a corner box that's out. So I'm going to do a square through 2 and a partner trade. And now I want to move them back to a corner box. I'm going to do a right and left through. They're in a corner box. Now I want to move them to a corner line. So I do a slide through. So now all of that is manipulating the 4 dancers in the corner box within and among themselves. If you want to stretch that out a little bit, then you can start taking these 4 the members of this corner box, pairing them up by the common dancer. Common dancer is corners, and then move them around the square until they meet again. And then do some more of that corner box to corner box out, corner line to corner line out, and get them back to a corner box, and you get your resolution right there.
And that is the segue into the next question, which I think was more of a clarification that you've answered. You said if you move the if your common dancers move from the phasar, if your common dancers move together, the phasar stays the same. And that was clarified as no, that's not what you said. It's if the 4 dancers move as a collection and stay together, they're in the same grouping regardless of the formation, and you can
Correct.
get them back to that phasar, and you clarified that.
Yes, groups are not phasers.
Yeah.
Every group is 8 phasers, 8 possible phasers.
Yeah. The next one was spin chain the gears as a conversion as it changes the dancer group but maintains the phasar. It's only changing the active dancers. If the sides start on the outside, sides end on the inside, but the phasar is still a corner box with new people. And you've talked about that. It's more, this is where we started clarifying into an inversion and what an inversion was, changing the insides to the outsides, but keeping the grouping the same.
That's correct. Spin chain the gears is a technical 0. When it's done from parallel ocean waves where adjacent dancers are common dancers.
This one was more of a thank you. It was to answer a question. I've always been told that bend the line was a 0, the same as 8 chain 4. Is that what was meant by bend the line as a 0? It's just an inversion. It doesn't change the phasar, only who is in the phasar. And it's the first time that somebody's actually clarified that for a dancer. So
the bend the line is only a 0 when the pairing state is same.
Yeah.
Okay, if the pairing state is mixed, then bend the line is no longer a 0.
This was a request to make the last presentation available before they review this one. Dan has already done that, and it is available on the website. It can be downloaded out of the chat or off the OC Callers website. The last one, you said conversions, for conversions, you need a single dancer change or a centers change in the middle. Your sequence right and left through, swing through was the first trade. Girls circulate was a move 1 or a trade, changing, and a boys trade, boys run bend the line. That's 3 changes. Does that equal 1 conversion? Is that the same as X's and O's? And I think you clarified that when you started talking left side and near side with group overlap.
Technically, okay, let's take a look at that one sequence again and see what's happening. Start in a corner box, and we call swing through.
Would this be easier to see if I put terminations up?
Yeah, let's put terminations up. And
Okay, let's just do that.
are you doing that?
Yeah, I'll grab it.
While he does that, Kip, quick thing. Remember, you said 3 changes is 1 change.
No, I never said that.
I thought you said something like that. 3 equals 1.
No, that was the question that came up. 3 changes the same as 1 change, as in X's and O's from mental image.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm sorry that I made that confusing statement. What I said was, here I'm in a corner box. What I said was 3 people leaving the left collection and 3 new people arriving from the right-hand collection is the exact same as 1 dancer leaving the left collection and arriving at the other collection. They're the same.
Okay.
All right. I mean, the net result is the same. The geography is different. They would end up, geographically in different locations. But when I say that changing the membership of a group, there's only 2 ways to do it. One is to send 1 dancer out. The other is to send 2 dancers out. Sending 3 dancers out is the same as sending 1 dancer out.
That would be the same like in. It would be the same like in spin chain and exchange the gears. So when 1 dancer gets out and gets the 3 others back over.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's spin chain the gears is actually let's do it from here and see if I can slow it down.
So yeah, spin chain and exchange the gears.
Exchange the gears, yeah.
Moves 3 people from one side of the square to the other. And that's an equivalent of just moving 1.
That's the equivalent of moving
out of
1.
the
That's why it's a conversion, right?
Okay,
I thought you meant spin chain the gears.
No, that would be a transition.
Spin chain the gears.
Yeah.
Takes us from a corner box with the sides on the outside
To a corner box with the heads.
heads on the outside.
Yeah. So it's a technical 0.
Yep.
And if you chain or have the centers trade right now, it'll function as a transition.
Yep.
Mhm.
It will function as a transition for
In combination with.
for the near group,
Yeah.
but not for the left group. Let me show you. This group has transitioned from corner to right-hand lady. Or let me stick with my focal man. This group has transitioned from corner to right-hand lady, the far group. The left group is still the same. That's right-hand lady right now, right-hand lady. And this is also right-hand lady.
Yeah, just taking the trade, but the combination of spin chain and exchange the gear, spin chain the gears in the centers trade, that would be a transition as well.
That would be a transition as well, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
So spin chain the gears is a technical 0. Spin chain the gears and the centers trade, terrible combination, is a transition. Spin chain and exchange the gears is a conversion, which goes, for instance, if you start in a corner box wave, you end up in an opposite box wave.
Now, I'm going to try to recall the exact sequence that was brought up in your original question. I think the first was a swing through.
Yeah, it was this swing through, not
And then
small.
ends, circulate.
Yeah, swing through. Now that has the grouping. There's the first trade.
That's the conversion.
Yep.
That circulate is a conversion, okay?
And circulate.
Centers trade.
That was the next one, and then centers trade.
And then the centers run. And a bend the line.
And bend the line.
So that corner, that right-hand lady group that we were in ends up now in a partner group.
Yep.
Okay. And the operative call, the functional call in that whole series was the girls circulating.
Yeah. And and what I was getting at was when you say trading in the middle,
Yeah,
if the on the swing through, the boys are trading in the middle of that wave, and on the boys trade, they're trading in the middle of the wave. That's not what you meant when you said transiting. If you have the center girls do U-turn back and
no,
cross,
no.
that's a different kind of centers trade. That was clarified in the group overlap explanation.
Okay, so I'll go there right now. Can everybody see that we're in a partner group? Everybody sees we're in a partner group.
Mhm.
So we'll do pass through, we'll do wheel and deal, so we can set up a center couple. And now what we're going to do is to have an exchange of two dancers symmetrically in the center with a flutter wheel. And that exchange immediately converts from a partner group to, in this particular case, a right-hand lady group in the far group. This far group is a right-hand lady group. Okay. If I have centers pass through, that's a transition. So we're going to transition from a right-hand lady group to a corner group. So again, I'm focusing on where my number one man is. He was over here with this in this collection. Now he's over here in this collection, and this collection is a corner group. Having the two center dances, the four center dances pass through is a transition from right hand to corner. If we do a veer left and we have the boys circulate, whoops, gotta spell it right. You can see right here that this lower, the near collection is a corner group. Everybody agree? As soon as those boys circulate, that's got to change. This lower collection now is an opposite lady group. It's an opposite lady group because if we put the common dancers together, they're opposite ladies. Each man now has his opposite lady beside him. And the group is named for the lady that represents the common pairing. Regina had asked about, what are common dancers? And Mike offered an answer, and he's right. Common dancers is an expression that means all men in the square are paired with the same relative girl. And all girls are paired with the same relative man. So every girl right now has her opposite man beside her. Every man has his opposite girl beside her. All common dances are paired. In every single collection of four dancers, regardless of what it is or where it is or how it is, it's always going to be comprised of two boys, one head boy and one side boy, and two girls, one head girl and one side girl. And there will always be a pairing that represents common dancers in the foursome, always. If you put the common dancers beside each other, all common dancers are paired. If you move common dancers anywhere at all, the groups never change. The group that's named for that common pairing remains the same. In this case, it's opposites. So if I say couples circulate, I still have opposite lady groups. If I say Ferris wheel, oops. I still have opposite lady groups. I don't care how you look at it. Look at these four. They're still paired with opposite ladies. Okay. If I call a double pass through, everybody's still in an opposite lady group. If I have the leads or the leaders, I forget the abbreviation. Oh, very good.
Leaders trade or leads trade, outsides trade, whichever you want.
There we go. It's still an opposite lady group. As long as these common dances are paired with each other, wherever they go, the groups are always going to be an opposite lady group. It's not going to change until I move either one or two of the dancers out of one collection and over to the other, and I get a reciprocation because of symmetry. Okay, it won't change. The group's going to remain the same. Now, if I do it,
Did that answer your question, Regina?
you can
Regina?
clearly see here that the groups are still opposite lady groups. Okay, looking at the near collection, they're still opposite lady groups. But because of the pairings and the fact that I'm facing common dancers, my next call is probably going to send my common dancers away from each other, which means they're no longer going to be, I'm no longer going to be able to pair them up once that's completed. Like for instance, I do a pass through, I do a bend the line. Now my groups are still the same. You know, I still have these four still represent an opposite lady group, because if I pair up the common dancers, they'd be opposite to each other. They'd be opposite ladies and opposite men. Okay. However, in all probability, I'm going to work with the dancers in front of me. So my common lady is off over here, and I'm about ready to say goodbye to her. She's gone. On the next call, slide through. And this is going to change. And now that slide through has converted from opposite lady group to partner group. And every time we have four dancers together, there'll always be two men who are opposite each other and two ladies who are opposite each other. And there'll be some way that we can pair up common dancers in the group of four.
Can you go back to your line, Kip?
I'll try and undo. There?
Yes.
Okay.
So when we're looking at groups, what's really important is the group upon which you're focusing. And maybe you're focusing upon the near group, which is the line of four. And that near group is, in fact, an opposite lady group. Or maybe you're focusing on the facing couple group. That group's already a partner group.
Yeah.
So if we did a ladies chain from here, basically we would be pairing up the common dancers that are within the facing couple group, which are partners, then everybody has their partner. So if we chain the ladies back again, and if we are focusing on the near group and we want to keep them together, then to actually work with them, we usually need to get them into some kind of formation that makes sense to work with them. So for instance, pass through and bend the line from there. And notice in the facing couple group, we didn't change anything. They're still the same membership. From here, right and left through and ladies chain, and our opposite group still remains intact, but now we've paired up our common dancers, so all groups are common dancers. And this is basically a method that you use to utilize that group overlap that Kip was talking about. We really only care about the group that the dancers perceive, or a group that we want to make use of to make some kind of a change. So right now I know I have opposite ladies next to me, and if I want to create partners, all I need to do is move that. I need to separate the common dancers. So a flutter wheel type of action or a ladies chain type of action will separate them. And then I know that the partner group is going to exist in the overlapping collection. And so in order to make use of that, we usually try to get them into facing couples. So pass through, bend a line. And now I know to create some kind of zero line, I need to do some kind of ladies chain effect. So like pass the ocean, for instance, and then swing through is going to pair up the people, and then boys run, bend the line. It's going to give me some kind of partner line. Then the only thing that you have to worry about is sequence after that.
Yep, absolutely correct. That's pretty much a walkthrough of what Kip was saying with it. You're focusing on one, and then periodically you may, depending on what you want to achieve, you may change from watching the left-hand group to the near group, or vice versa. You may even change to watch the right-hand group, whatever your focus is on. Once you start recognizing those 8 groupings, that's where you start really being able to play with the choreography, because you'll have something in mind to take that group and do with it what you want to do, whether it's to change it to another group or move it around to a resolution. Would that be a pretty reasonable summary, Kip?
Yeah, that's great. And thank you, Mike, for making that contribution too. So like I said when we first started, this is kind of an advanced topic. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the caller that's only been calling for a year or two. But it shows you that there's a destination for you in building your skill sets. There's a place for you to go. There's something for you to learn. And there's a lot to learn about relationships that has escaped many of the callers who have learned in the past 2 or 3 decades. And I would honestly say that it's extremely valuable to get back to it. We were close to it at one point, back when Don Beck was writing his book, Out of Sight, and he was dealing with relationships in a different way, using X's and O's and that type of thing, and also slot theory that was developed way back in the 70s was an attempt to begin the study of relationships, but somehow it fell through the cracks over the years. We want to bring it back because we think it's extremely valuable, and we think that all callers need to own these skills. You need to be able to call to a floor of dancers. Have any of you had the excitement of calling to over 500 squares? I mean, I have. And if you think you're a sight caller and you're going to be able to use sight calling skills with 500 squares of dancers moving in front of you, you're wrong. It's totally a different scheme of things. I called for 500 squares in an L-shaped room at a convention center, and I had no idea who to watch. I mean, you know, it was something that you simply had to sit down and you had to make notes. You know, the big bald guy with a little skinny girl and all this kind of nonsense. It was really, really difficult. And luckily, I was able to fall back on some of the skills I had learned on sight calling, not so much sight calling, but relationship calling, though it wasn't even called that in those days. And you're able to use memorized routines, and you can get through. I called it at Disneyland, and I think I called it in the area called It's a Small World. And the stage had a lift in it. So I was down underneath the stage. I had umpteen squares squared up all over It's a Small World, and the music was playing, and It's a Small World, the singing call. I'm downstairs, totally out of view of the dancers, and I'm calling. And the stage comes up with steam all around it and all that stuff. I mean, you got to be able to do this, and there's only one way or two ways to do that. You either have to use memorized routines that you know are rock solid, or you need to be able to follow dancers in your head. And if you're going to follow in your head, you need these relationship skills.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Kip, I want to say very, very, very much thank you again for coming in. I'm almost tempted to say we're going to book you in for another 6 sessions to go through each component of your presentation, this time piece by piece, because each little subsection of that is worthy of a presentation in itself. This is a lot of material. Thank you very much also for providing the homework to better understand the material and practice applying what it was you have given us. thanks for sticking around. And to everybody else, if you have any more questions for Kip, please unmute yourself, ask the questions directly. Kip has graciously said he'll stick around to answer any questions for a little bit longer. And the floor is now open. Thank
Yes,
you very much,
Regina.
Kip.
Regina, the answer is yes. Go ahead. Yeah, we got a hand up. Marie. Anybody? I see a hand up. Marie, are you just saying hi, goodbye? Thanks, Regina. Yeah, it'll be on the website. You'll be able to pull the whole slide set down and do those drills and exercises on your own.
Yeah. So Kip, if you could email that to me and email it to Mark, or email it to me and I can email it to Mark, we can get it up on the website. I can also send it to those people that don't access the website via email.
Very good. Okay. Thank you so much for sticking in there, everybody. Appreciate it. It's one of my favorite topics. Anybody
Thank
wants
you very
to?
much. Good night. Thank you, Kit.
Thank you, Susie. Anybody wants to do a one-on-one Zoom, let me know, and we'll set up some time that's mutual to the both of us, and we'll go from there.
Okay then. Bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for discussion.
I just wanted to say something here real quick. Thanks, Kip. And
Welcome, Mark.
I am in case anybody's looking or hasn't noticed, I am redoing the videos page for the Orange County Callers website because there's getting to be way too many and it was taking way too long to scroll through the whole page to find what you were looking for. So I've got all the videos done for Mel's. I haven't got to Don and
GSI.
X.
I haven't got to Don's yet. But I've got our videos done. I'm working on it right now of getting the PDF files and PowerPoints added back into it for all the older class ones.
Don and Dan, Mark.
Don and Dan, there we go.
Okay, and for those of you that are sticking around, you'll get the invitation. Next week, we're going to be looking at something that's come up with a lot of the new callers. We've had a lot of one-on-one sessions lately and a lot of after-action sessions. They've been asking about timing, but in particular, it's one aspect of timing, and that is patter. And dealing with the patter, it's the words and the filler words we use. So that's going to be the topic for next week, is just basically let's talk patter, the words and the filler. It's a whole discussion in itself of what's good, what's bad, etc. We don't have any bookings right now for the 25th of April here in Australia. That's Anzac Day. My wife has not let me know whether or not I can come on Zoom, or she's got other plans for the day yet. But she's the one that will be making that decision. But I will let you all know in time. We've got Barry Wanson coming up on the 2nd of May to talk about note services. They are a caller's friend. There's advantages and pitfalls to note services. We've got a few free nights that are still to be booked and confirmed. And at the end of May, we've got Jeff Priest coming to talk to us about teaching basics, how to teach, providing fun right from the beginning. So we've got a lot of sessions coming up. By all means, stick around, tune in. And if you want to get these sessions or you want to be put on the email distribution, just send me an email and I can send you the invitations and the links directly. Thank you very much, everybody, and feel free to open up the floor on anything.
Mike.
Kip, a great presentation. I would like you to talk a little more about why you would want to move them from a grouping to another, why you want to look at, when they're overlapping groups, why you want to look at one rather than the other. And at one point you said, now they're paired, their common dance are paired here, but I would move them away from that. And I think it's important to talk about the why and your philosophy on that.
Okay, so you asked a series of why questions. let me start with what I thought was the first one. Why do we want to move them from one group to another? I think that a trap that a lot of callers can get themselves in is maneuvering the dancers through the same quadrant of the square continuously. And the dancers don't get the feeling that they're dancing with the entire geography available to them, that they're not dancing in all the quadrants, and they're not dancing with all the other people. A significant value feature of invert and rotate or any of the technical zeros is that the dancers get a chance to dance with other members of the square, number one, and dynamically, they usually end up in a different quadrant. It's not always 90 degrees. Sometimes it's 270, sometimes it's 180 degrees, but they will end up geographically in another location. The dancers who remain in the same location, like in an all-age circulate, they could end up in the same quadrant, but they'll end up there with two new dancers. So the dancers get the feeling that they're dancing with everybody in the square, and if you put your stuff together correctly, you can maneuver them through all the various quadrants, all four quadrants of the square at the same time. So that's the why you want to be able to move dancers from group to group. If you're involved in singing calls, for instance, a lot of the singing call figures that I use, that I like to use, start out with right-hand lady. I mean, I move the dancers immediately to a right-hand lady group, and then I call a transition to get them over to the corner. And in doing so, well, it's a lot different from the normal approach, which I think a lot of callers start out by moving dancers to their corners, and then they use a series of calls to keep the corners together somehow, and they resolve them. So the typical and classic singing call figure of head square through four hands, do-si-do, swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, centers pass through, is highly anticipatory for the dancers. They know it's coming. But you can take that and just modify it considerably by starting with the right-hand lady. And there are some figures, matter of fact, a classic figure that starts with the right-hand lady is the heads promenade halfway, square through four hands, swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, square through three to the corner. And in a sense, what you're doing is you're utilizing your ability to move dancers from one group to the other using transitions. That's the power of knowing these groups. And you can also develop some easy to dance singing call figures that dancers have never really seen before that utilize ideas about transitions. And some clever choreography as well. Start with a right-hand lady box out of sequence, you touch a quarter, split circulate, put you in a mixed situation where you have group overlap, have the out faces trade. You're going from a right-hand lady box to a corner box. It's a transition, a corner situation, I should say, corner group. And it just so happens the lines are half sashayed, you're out of sequence, square through two to a right and left grand. This type of interaction of dancers moving dynamically from one group to another within two or three calls is a dynamic that you don't often see. Callers have a tendency in many instances to keep groups of dancers together. And then when they move to another group, they'll keep that group together. And then they'll move them back again and so on. But they won't use calls that dynamically change from group to group, from call to call. And that's the power of this. So the dancers feel like they're moving all over the place. And then finally, why, I think you asked, the last part of your question was why do we, what was your last part of that question, Mike? It was why you wanted to.
I think I answered the same thing a couple of times. I think you just answered everything.
I think
Okay.
he wanted an example of how you'd use an overlapping group.
No.
How overlapping group, but also I think you really said the right thing when you said you're moving people around the square because so often they don't feel like they're getting to play with everyone or they're not getting the whole geography of the square. They're playing in one corner or one half.
Yeah, and
It's very important. You brought that up.
Yeah, it's not only important, but it's so easy because in your mind, you know exactly where those dances are. You've put them there and you've put them there with purpose. And so if something does go wrong, like in that sequence I gave you where you do from a RBO, you do a touch, a quarter, split circulate, and you say boys trade. Well, if the dancers are in an ocean wave and the boys are disconnected and they've never done a trade like that before, you could get some stumbling around. You could get some squares that falter, and you need to be able to pick them up right away. You either be able to like get them out as quick as you can. You need to know that that boy's trade left everybody in a half sashayed facing line out of sequence with corners adjacent. And at that point, you need to resolve. Resolve quickly as you can, because if you've dumped 2 or 3 squares out of 10, you want to get them back going again quickly as you can.
Kip, I think the short answer to Mike's question was, why do you do it? It's called variety.
Yeah, variety is certainly a question. And, you know, there's another reason we do it. I mean, let's face it.
Control.
You have a microphone in your hand and you're calling dances. You have a self-awareness of what you're doing. And you want to make sure that you come across really good. I don't think I've run into the caller yet that didn't care about the impression he made on the dancers. And if you want to impress dancers, you need to be in control all the time. And this offers you an opportunity to learn how to use different calls, move dancers around, and be in total control while you're doing it. That's an awesome feeling. It's just an awesome feeling that you can focus on other things, dancer comfort, speed of the dance, whether or not you're dealing with older people who aren't moving quite as quickly. So you can change your timing, change your delivery, be aware of other situations in the hall where sound isn't getting to a particular corner just right. Be aware of situations that might involve a fall down situation in the hall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can be aware of other things and be calling, and all of this stuff is in the back of your head, and you're just rattling it off. And you know exactly where those dancers are. What did I say? The fall down? Have you ever had that happen? I've had a heart attack right in front of me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not comfortable.
One of the nice things about what you're saying with both, if you understand where you're going and those relationships, for instance, if I had a setup such as heads lead right, so I've got that kind of a box, I'm in the right-hand quadrant, pass through, trade by, I'm converting, I'm flipping that over, swing through, boys circulate, be girls trade, bend the line, reverse flutter wheel, I'm there, I'm in my corner box, corner line, square through 3 to the corner. That swings, but it's moving it from the right to switching it over, changing it to the corner box with the, I've inverted it, then I've converted it, then I've moved it, and I'm in that right, I'm into that promenade. It really feels like you're using not only the whole floor, but the whole dancers, the whole of the dancers to move around that floor. And you're right, moving and starting on the right does feel different than your standard head square through. I know where I'm at. You're going to do a 0, or you're going to do a 0 module with an interactive such as Ferris wheel and pass through. And it does get very anticipated after a while.
It does. That heads lead right sets you up for a get out of swing through 3 hands. The boys fold behind the girls fold behind the boys and follow him home. And clever little gimmick. But if you did it from heads lead right, the dancers can't really appreciate the gimmick part of it because it's such a short distance.
Mm-hmm.
But if you called that technical 0 of pass through, trade by, then you call the swing through, girls 3 hands, girls fold and follow him home, the trip home is almost halfway around the square. And you can have them do a little cha-cha, 1, 2, cha-cha-cha, 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. And it's you're playing with the dancers. It's a gimmick. There's no question about it. But it's a way of saying, okay, the first time I did it, the single file promenade home wasn't very good. It was too short. How can I lengthen it? Just throw the technical 0 in. Just throw the inversion in. Pass through, trade by. And, you know, the same get out's got to work because it's a technical 0.
Soon as you said that, I saw a Caribbean theme ending that with a conga line promenade.
Yeah, I've done it with the conga. the conga line thing, and it's. I mean, you want to do this like once every 6 years. You don't want to do it 6 times a night, but it's like I said, it's a clever little gimmick that loosens the dancers up and gives them a chance to do something that's unusual.
Yes, John.
Unmute.
John, did you have a comment or were you just stretching?
No, I think I'm just stretching.
Oh, okay.
That's all. Oh, I do have one question. I guess all this talk is great, but I still have my problem of following the dancers as well as all you guys do. So I haven't figured out how to hone that in. Where you can just look at the guys and say, "Oh, that's number 1 man. That's the number 3 girl. That's the number 4," and you sound like it's old hat, or they all have numbers on their heads as you're watching them, and I just haven't quite nailed that one down for me yet.
It just
John,
takes
yeah,
a while.
John, for your reference, when I started calling, I had the distinct advantage of having a club of 3 squares where everybody wore matching colors and practice. It still took me almost 3 years of regular calling, 1 and 2 nights a week to start figuring that out for myself. It takes time and it takes practice.
Yeah, that looks like one of the biggest bugaboos to me is to look at the square and say, after you have 5 or 6 calls in, you can remember who they all were or who the key man was and his key woman. So it'll just be
John,
an adventure.
what you have to do
Yes.
is start with a short memorized sequence and watch the dancers. Something that you already know works. Watch them so that you don't depend on the watching. The watching is a skill you develop while you're calling. And you
Sure.
can build from that.
Sounds good to me. All they do is just get off my butt and do it. There's the problem right there. It's that 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10 now.
Well, that's the first call you need to develop, John. Get off your butt.
So all this relationship theory and group theory that Kip has been talking about represent the symmetrical mechanics of the square, and they're always there no matter what technique you use. If you're a modular caller purely like Bob, built into those modules are these transitions, conversions, and inversions, and group overlap. It's all there. You might as well understand it. You can start to work with your checkers and begin to understand this theory so that you know what's going on. And then little by little, you can incorporate one piece of it into your live performances. So if the one piece that you want to incorporate is just the transition, then you can think of it in terms of chicken plucker and focus on that and pay attention to what's happening when you make those transitions. And eventually you'll own that. And then you can expand your horizon a little bit and include inversions, the technical zero effects and so forth. And then that becomes part of your arsenal. And the more that you can put into your bag of tricks and own, the better off you'll be in the long run.
Let me just add that it's impossible, I think, to make a presentation of this nature and cover the topic completely without mentioning that it will take you 2 years to develop everything we talked about today.
If you're
It's
lucky.
a long time. I didn't develop this overnight. No one has. It takes a long time of concentrated skills, taking a little bit at a time, focusing on it, developing that aspect, and moving on to the next.
Yeah.
The idea behind the presentation is to give you an outline of all the things that you really need to accomplish to develop the skills. Your job is to take that outline one piece at a time, one step at a time, and develop it as you go along. And don't think it's going to happen overnight. There's nobody I know that has developed this overnight. Nobody.
This goes for any profession.
That's absolutely.
Hello, Guido.
No, I'm not going to say that. thought that came to mind. Michael, I like your analogy. I've always likened this technical aspect of, regardless of what you do, square dance calling is like driving a car. Almost anybody can learn to drive a car, but the people that are really comfortable driving the cars are the ones that take the time to learn the rules, learn what that check engine light means, how to check the oil and how to change it, and make sure how to use a spare tire in case you break down. That's what makes driving more accessible and more comfortable for you and for your passengers.
So I've used this analogy before in context with the square dance calling. And when you're learning to call patter, no matter what method you use, it's kind of like learning to drive a car. You know, when you begin to learn to drive a car, there's all kinds of things that you have to think about. You have to think about that steering wheel, your mirrors, and if it's got a clutch and a stick shift, good grief, you got a lot to deal with. And you're juggling, 5 or 6 different things all at once. And so you're not very confident. Eventually, some of those things become muscle memory and just automatic, and you don't think about them anymore, really. When I'm calling patter, I almost never think of sequence. Almost never. And so it just becomes automatic because sequence is built into the phasers that are easily recognizable for me. And so once I get to one of those phasers, I know what the sequence is. If I'm looking at a corner line, I can tell whether it's in or out of sequence based on where the paired couple is, or if it's a partner line, where they are relative to my, where the corner is relative to their corner, basically. I can determine what it is. And that's just automatic. I don't have to think about it. If I'm explaining it to somebody, I have to explain what the technique is of recognizing that and so forth. And that becomes complicated because when you're driving that car, you got to remember when you turn the steering wheel to the right, to the left, the car is going to go to the left, and you've got your stick shift, you've got your speedometer, you got to pay attention to, and the things in the mirrors and all the spatial awareness around you. And I mean, it's hard to learn, but eventually it just becomes automatic and you don't even think about it. You just think, I'm going to go this way, and that's what you do. And so calling patter is a lot like that. The techniques that you need to present the patter will eventually become automatic. And then you have a problem of getting past the plateau that you get stuck on. So eventually you're starting to call the same material over and over again. And now how do I break out of that? Now that becomes the next thing, or how do I make sure the flow is great all the time? Or all these aspects of presentation are things that eventually kind of become automatic, but always need some kind of review.
I have a question for Mike Sikorsky. Mike,
I'm ready.
is that drink got an umbrella in it? And is that a tequila sunrise with a cactus behind you, or are you just sucking on a milkshake?
I wish. No, that was no.
I just noticed the straw, but the drink seemed to be very hidden, well below the camera level there.
As my girlfriend Janice, she took that picture. Back in February, we had some cold weather all over the United States, and we actually had snow down about the 1,500 foot level here in Arizona. And so if you, because we have the mountains close, I've got Superstition Mountain behind it. And you could see snow on the mountain, and yet the cactus shows it's Arizona, and it's not snow down because we're at the 400 foot level, but that's it. But that snow's probably at 2,000 and higher. So that is an actual photo that was taken.
So what's that have to do with the drink?
I noticed he dodged that question.
Protein shake.
Yeah, and my work meetings, this is coffee, not wine in a coffee cup. Yeah.
How many believe it? Raise your hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for coming in today. It looks like we've reached a lull in the conversations. I can leave the room open, or if anybody wants to look at specific aspects or has any more questions for Kip, by all means. If not, I think we might be calling it a day just a little bit early for a change. Kip, thank you again very, very, very much. And I think Kip just left. Oh. Bye, Kip. So if anybody has any other questions or any discussion that they want to generate, oh, hi, Betsy, did see you in there. You snuck in the corner somewhere. I guess that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Mike, you're coming up to Kitsap, Mike, for a couple weeks?
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
That is correct. Let me put my email address in the message to everybody. And I can email those flyers to anybody
Yeah.
who wants them. Kitsap, by the way.
Bob Blackburn already posted them up on the local sites here, but yeah, it'd be nice to see you come up. You'll like the hall. We really did a good